Hi there. These comments are for DA, and I am Michael, and thank you for doing your integrated speaking practice test. I think this is number 3, question number 30, TPO, TOEFL Practice Online. If you can do me a favor in the YouTube video below this, if you can put the link where you do your TPO practice, that'll be very beneficial for other students who are preparing for the TOEFL. I know there's a Zaban TPO and there's other websites where you can do your practice test, but ETS is constantly shutting them down and filing lawsuits against these companies because they're stealing content. So the TPO webpage has kind of changed a lot because of that. Okay, well, let's get started. I'm going to listen to your integrated speaking practice test. I'm going to listen to the whole thing one time, and then the second time I do it, I'll actually give you some comments, and we'll get an estimated score. And we'll see how we're doing.
In this lecture, the professor discusses emotional intelligence, which is the ability to recognize true feelings and understand what is causing them. He gives an example about his daughter to illustrate it. One day, his daughter's friend visited her at home and they decided to watch a movie. At the beginning, they didn't agree what movie they had to watch. Then they decided. But his daughter was upset and she didn't know the reason. When she thought about her feeling, she recognized that her friend was not the cause of her bad feeling, but because of starting a new job and how she had to handle with children. When she understood her true feeling, she apologized to her friend and her friend encouraged her. As a result, his daughter felt good, and that's how the professor illustrates emotional intelligence.
Okay, so let's take a look at the rubrics. I think you're in pretty good shape. If I look at, let me kind of look at these here. Give me a quick second here. Okay, if I'm looking at the rubrics, right, I'm going to try to figure out how I might score it right now. So let's see. Okay, so with the delivery, I think looking in the 3 range here, I'm going to say you have some minor difficulties with pronunciation, some minor difficulties with intonation, and then some minor difficulties with pacing. So I think that the delivery area, this is a pretty big area that's holding your speaking back right now. So let's talk about each of them. So pronunciation, I think just your general ability to pronounce certain sounds, for example, the R sound at the end of a word, for example, her, you might say her. So with the R, you have some trouble pronouncing that. You're probably pronouncing it like you do in your own language, so I think that's one thing you can probably work on. I think also the bilabial consonants, the P and the B consonant sounds, you can work on those a little bit more. Then with your intonation, I think when you say a sentence, right, you have to divide the sentence into thought groups of 4 or 5 stressed syllables. And then each of the thought groups, when you end the thought group, you have a slightly higher pitch. Then your tone needs to drop when you get to the end of the sentence. Sometimes your thought groups are a little too small, and that ends up in too many pauses and hesitations. That also affects your pacing. So that's probably the biggest area right now. I mean, my estimation right now is, right, if we put you right around the 3 area, that's going to put you right around 23 to 24 points out of 30. Now, one thing that you can do that I think can be very helpful, you can think about this for a minute, is I think if you can have somebody read with you, maybe you can pick a newspaper, a magazine, or a book of some sort, and you can practice reading out loud with the person, and then you can read a paragraph. Then this native speaker gives you feedback on that. Then you read another paragraph, you get some more feedback on that. So I think little by little you get a little bit of feedback as you're going through your pronunciation practice, and I think that would definitely have a big input. So that would be something I think you can definitely work on. All right? And I think that's probably one thing you can do. Now, let's listen to it one more time. And I'm going to give you some more feedback as we go. So let's see how.
In this lecture, the professor discusses emotional intelligence, which is the ability to recognize true feelings and understand what is causing them. He gives an example about his daughter to illustrate it. One day, his daughter's friend visited her at home and they decided to watch a movie. At the beginning, they didn't agree what movie they had to watch. Then they
Know what movie they had to watch. I would say maybe they couldn't agree on what movie they were going to watch. I would probably say it like that. Instead of saying had means they're mandatory. They were being forced to watch the movie, but they were more kind of sitting down, entertaining themselves, and they're trying to choose what they wanted to do.
decided. But his daughter was upset and she didn't know the reason. When she thought about her feeling, she recognized
Now, when she what now? Let's go back to what you just
they
said.
didn't agree what movie they had to watch. Then they decided. But his daughter was upset and she didn't know the reason. When she thought about her
No, then his daughter was upset. I think you might be having some pronoun issues
to
here.
watch, then they decided. But his daughter was upset and she didn't know the reason. When
But his daughter was upset and she didn't know the reason. It seems like you should say he there. Am I wrong? So his daughter was upset, but he or the professor or the parent did not know the reason.
When she thought about her feeling, she recognized that her friend was not the cause of her bad feeling, but because of starting a new job and how she had to handle with children. When she understood her,
Now, how she had to what? I couldn't quite get that.
when she thought about her feeling,
Yeah, when you say that word thought, make sure you're getting your tongue in between your teeth there. So when she thought about her feelings,
she recognized that her friend was not the cause of her bad feeling, but because of starting a new job and how she had to handle with children. When she understood
so that part was a little awkward how you were saying that. So she thought about how difficult it was for her during her job and then how difficult it was to balance the family with the work responsibilities. I don't think you said that very well there, that part of your response.
her true feeling, she apologized to her friend, and her friend encouraged her. As a result,
No, her friend encouraged her too. See, that's where you're having trouble when you're trying to pronounce some of these words. You're so careful on the pronunciation of those words. It's slowing down your speech a little bit. So you have to get what we call fluidity of expression. So you have to get about 1.5 times faster than what you're doing right now.
his daughter felt good, and that's how the professor illustrates emotional intelligence.
And that's how the example the professor gives illustrates emotional intelligence, you might say, which is the academic concept defined in the beginning of the lecture. I think that my score is pretty accurate, might even be a little lower than that. So I'm going to say maybe 22 to 23 points out of 30. That's probably a pretty accurate one. I think you had some language use issues too. Be careful about using a lot of pronouns instead of just she, his daughter, the young woman, or something like that. Be careful about overusing prepositions too much. Sometimes it gets a little bit difficult, who is actually saying what if you use too many pronouns. I think overall, I think the main strategy for you is to focus a lot in the pronunciation area. I think, of my course. I think that's going to be very beneficial for you. You seem to have a pretty good sense on how to organize your responses, right? So that's good. But you can't deliver the response very clearly. So I think instead of only focusing on, and I don't know what you're doing behind the scenes, but I would put a primary focus right now on pronunciation practice and get to where you're comfortable speaking clearly, dividing ideas into thought groups of 4 to 5 stressed syllables. You're comfortable varying your intonation. You're comfortable doing all of those things that are necessary to helping you deliver this speech very clearly, very intelligibly, in a way that's very easy for other people to understand. All right? And thank you for doing this practice test.